Up next on Inside ChampCar, a VIR preview and a chat with David Kicak. Welcome to the Inside ChampCar podcast. I'm Brian Bielanski.
And I'm Bill Strong.
Today, we're going to talk about VIR and the upcoming race weekend. We're also going to be joined a little later in the show by David Kicak. He's a ChampCar driver, former IMSA driver, raced Corvettes and Porsches. Wow, what stories, Bill. That was a ton of fun.
That's some great stories there. No drug running involved.
That we know of.
That
we talk about.
Whenever you talk about IMSA, from the old days of the 80s and 70s, you think of the bad stuff. But,
yeah.
Well, the big money.
There you go. There you go. It's fun. This podcast, a little inside baseball. We almost always now record the interview first. Right. Which is cool because then you and I get to tell people how cool what we got coming is going to happen, and then if they don't want to hear you and I banter.
And they have to wait.
Yes.
No, they can't fast forward. They have to wait.
Yes. I don't think I can disable the fast forward feature.
Oh, shoot.
Darn it.
So what's it been like for you here? You went to Auto Club this weekend?
I did. Got to see the new next-gen cars. I know there are people who do what we do who sometimes turn their nose up at the NASCAR folks, but those new cars are really cool.
I had tickets to the Phoenix race here, and so funny story. I'm out in Phoenix for the fall race,
right?
And I'm like, I'm going to get tickets. I'm going to take my kids there. We're going to go watch the race. And I go online, and then I'm the guy that I'm holding my phone away from my face here. I have to hold it far away. I start clicking. Next thing I know, I bought 4 tickets, and it says, the thank you letter is, we'll send those out to you in March or whatever. And I'm like, wait, no, what?
Yeah.
March.
Yeah.
And it had been sold out, and I didn't know I'd bought tickets for next year's race.
Very cool.
So I had tickets for it, but gave them to my kids and my daughter and her husband and my grandsons.
Nice.
And said, go watch the race.
Nice.
Of course, my grandson's only 6 months or not even a year old yet, so he might like it. You never know.
So what's cool about those cars, or one of the things, in my opinion, is they have these new composite bodies. So they tear and they don't bend, they don't dent like an old school metal body. Think Saturn or Pontiac Fiero. Remember the plastic-ish bodies on the Pontiac Fieros?
Or those cheap cars that your mom and dad would get you when you didn't have any money for a Hot Wheel?
No, but it's not really carbon fiber. It's got a bend to it where you can rub and it flexes. Plastic reinforced. Right.
Or fiber reinforced, as it calls. I don't know.
Right.
Something like that.
So obviously if you hit something hard, you're gonna have issues. But it allows you to put that old Darlington stripe on the car and maybe not bang out all of what was done to it. It also doesn't allow for that little massaging that they would try to get away with, in the wind tunnel. Right. Because it doesn't, you would have to probably heat it and bend it. I'm sure they've got ways, but
they've got Bondo,
right?
They got plastic. They have those plastic welders.
Sure.
Could probably do to reconfigure it.
But that was pretty cool. And of course, now they've caught up to the 1990s, and they have center lug wheels. So
and 6-speed boxes in the back of the car.
Exactly. So they're almost getting to 2010, maybe.
I always thought the best racing would be the best way to go for NASCAR, and this is just. I grew up watching NASCAR. Never actually been to one, which I thought Phoenix was going to be my first NASCAR race ever. But,
you've never been to Richmond or Martinsville?
Nah.
Oh, you got to go.
I just I'm the guy that sits down and watches it, and I watch the start, watch the first wreck, and then I'm asleep, and then I wake up with 10 laps to go. You
wouldn't sleep at Richmond or Martinsville.
No.
But, especially I love both those tracks.
Yeah, so. and I keep being told I should go to those, but I just haven't had time or the need to yet. But
I get it.
And I like to be in the mix, down in the the pits and paddock and stuff like that. But it's where was I going with that?
I have no idea.
This happens to me.
Oh, boy.
But I want it.
So VIR coming up.
Can we edit this?
So VIR. No. This is the fun part. So VIR this weekend, Bill. It's going to be a big race. This is the second race on the ChampCar series, right? The ChampCar Endurance Series schedule. The first race, obviously, chilly and cold because it's Atlanta. It's going to be March in Danville. Still could be pretty chilly and cold.
It's not going to be that bad. They're expecting rain on Sunday was the last report I saw.
Got it. Okay.
But nothing on Saturday. It's a 12-hour race.
Okay.
We have some pretty darn good teams coming. Atlanta Speedworks is going to be there with their Boxster. Atlanta Speedworks was the team that ran an IMSA, I guess TCR.
Yeah.
And they've decided to field some ChampCar teams and they're coming back. They're going to come back with a vengeance. I think they'll do pretty well. Blitz Racing is going to be there with their Camaros. I've raced with them. I think they're going to win this thing outright.
Yeah, definitely.
It got quiet. Freddie Mercury's there, and that is the Bliss arch nemesis. Those two cars go up for the D-class win pretty much every race, and it always comes down to who's going to survive. And Freddie Mercury with their Mercury Capri, they're fast. They're really fast. I've gone up against them.
I just love the Freddie Mercury team name.
I know you do.
Do they play Queen in the pits and all of that? Do they have a big old school boom box or something?
They go by me so fast. I can't hear it. It's that, and that was it. I can't name that tune in 3 notes.
Oh, that's too good. Too good. So we're recording on Monday. So if the forecast changes, don't yell at me.
Well, let's do another one. It's going to rain. Wait, it's going to snow. Wait,
exactly.
It's going to be windy.
We'll just edit it.
It's going to be cold. Yeah,
we'll just edit it out. Right now, it's supposed to be 61 and mostly sunny on Saturday and 61 and mostly sunny on Saturday, and Sunday 74 with some rain possible.
Yeah. And NLS Racing is going to be there. They took the win at Atlanta here a couple of weeks ago, and their cars will be ready, and they have done really well at this track too. I think it's going to be an NLS weekend.
Okay.
Though RVA Graphics and Wraps is there.
Okay.
They have done really well too, and this is their home track as well. It's a toss between the 411 and the 111. The 511 is the M3. That doesn't count. That's an EC class car.
Right.
So it's going to be between those two cars, and whoever's driving it, that could do it. And the Enterprise is supposed to be there. He's been away for quite a while with that big Ford LTD.
Right.
One of the best pictures I've ever seen in ChampCar was that LTD on the banking at Daytona with a Miata next to it. The Miata looks like a Hot Wheel. It's compared to this huge thing.
That's too good. Too good.
Yeah. So, and the Virginia Tech team is going to be there, and they actually did pretty well last year.
Sure.
Here, so it'll be kind of cool. They've got a new car.
Okay.
They've got a new class of kids coming through for their engineering team.
Sure.
And they've got a new Focus SVT, and hopefully they can get that car sorted out pretty quick. And they didn't do a lot of experiments. So 2 years ago, the team came up, had all this experimental aero stuff on the car.
Right.
And it was a little scary. And some of it was asked to be removed.
Sure.
Well,
I mean, they're engineers, they're trying to do what they can do. So,
yep. The wind tunnel said do this, and
we have a different tech tip later, so we won't deep dive into this. But do teams do a rain tire with you guys, or are they running tires already with enough tread that when it starts to get wet, they just keep going?
We all run tread. I mean, there are guys that come out there with shaved tires or whatever,
sure.
But we would start out in I want to say 2013. We had an ice race there. We were at VIR on the intercourse, and it was supposed to be they were repaving the track, so we ended up doing it on the inside track, which I forget the name of it now.
Yeah, it's okay.
But yeah, they're and so it was supposed to be rainy and wet, maybe icy. So I went out and bought some Continentals and mounted them, and we were ready to go. And we got to the track, and my the Dunlop Durezas did perfect. Once they got heat in them,
right,
they were great. We never changed them, even during the rain or whatever.
Nice. But
some guys, actually, some of the really wet races, they get out there with either some street tires,
right?
They're street tires,
right?
But they're designed more for rain, and they handle the lower temperatures a little better. Now, you wouldn't want to run them in the dry because they wouldn't last very long, but they would just bubble up and the rubber would just go away. But there's guys that run the Continentals and the Extreme Contact all-weather ones, and they do quite well. Some guys are say they in the rain that the tires were maybe a second faster than their tires, the fast dry tires. Yeah. So some teams will do that. A lot of teams they bring them, but they never use them. So.
I was at Road Atlanta once with my street car, and it started to rain, and some driver ran up to me and said, "Can I borrow those?" He literally took the wheels off my street car, slapped them on his car.
Oh yeah,
because Hondas.
Yeah,
and drove his race, and then took the wheels and left my car on jack stands for the entire race, and came back and put my street tires back on, and no worse for the wear. Literally.
So that happens a lot in our racing, and
I bet
if you go back to like when David Kicak,
right,
back in the days of the Firehawk series. People would look around for cars, their Firebird in the, in the paddock or the parking lot, and see if they could find some parts off that to use in those long races where the parts store ran out of parts, so go get an axle off that guy.
Right, or the parts store isn't open at 10 o'clock at night. When the car breaks.
Yep.
Good stuff.
Or you came out to get your coat out of the trunk, and why is my car on jack stands?
Note to self: ask the owner of the car before you do it. That's usually a good sign. All right. What else do we need to know about VIR this weekend?
Well, that's tech is going on, so make sure you have all your tech stuff. Your team captain has all the tech stuff filled out online. That's through your account that you sign up to the race with. The team captain will go in there, fill out all the all the points. All the points are your responsibility for all the cheaty bits you have on your car. Our tech guys will be inspecting only the safety equipment, your roll cage, your belts, make sure all the dates are correct on it. I had about 5 different emails and messages over the last 2 days of guys with expired seat belts asking if we would just let it fly. If you're asking me now before the race, I'm pretty certain that's not going to work.
Right.
But those things that say they end on certain days, they're going to end on certain days. Now, that's up to tech. Tech makes those final decisions, and I am not tech. I want to say that again over and over again because I don't like my boss getting phone calls from the board of directors saying Bill is not tech.
Bill is not tech.
No,
Bill is not tech.
Yes.
So
we do have an announcement.
Yeah.
Unfortunately.
Unfortunately. This one makes me sad.
Yes. So all the folks in the Southeast, and when I say the Southeast, I mean the real Southeast.
Right.
Florida.
Yep.
So unfortunately, the September race at what you and I call the Moroso track is Palm Beach International Raceway is shutting down. The rumors are true. I'm going to read word for word from our director. This was released today, which is Monday, the couple days before this is aired.
Right.
So Dana sent this out on the forum to greetings all. Here's the deal. The track is closing. Final answer. At least that's the most recent word from my friends there. We will not be running our September race, but there might be an option for kind of a cool ChampCar memory. I would really like for ChampCar to host a last sanctioned wheel-to-wheel race event at the track. Yes, there are other events on the calendar there, but we could be the final or the last actual race event. The catch is it would be on a Tuesday. The date we are looking at is Tuesday, April 19th.
Huh.
If we do it, we would run a very simple format, short race, 2 drivers, 8 hours with a lunch, a 2-hour minimum or 2-driver minimum, 8 hours with the lunch break from 12 to 1. The break helps us source corner workers for a race on a weekday. Remember, they have to get fed or something. I don't know. So I'm looking for input from you guys. Yes or no? Would you make the race? We don't need to crush the field with entries, just enough to call it a race. I know that the date drops right after Daytona and right before the Championship of the Ozarks, but I think it would be cool to have the last race there. What do you think? And this is posted on the forum in the race section at forum.champcar.org under the Palm Beach International Raceway thread.
Yeah.
The official thread. Please, if you have even a chance to run that track, let's do this. It's a neat little track. That's Dana's local track as well. He lives, I think 30 minutes away from the track.
Got it.
If you walk, I don't know, but he doesn't live that far away from it. And there's a lot of folks in South Florida that do. A lot of folks in South Florida that grew up at that track.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
It's a neat place. I don't know. It's a little boring for me because it's so wide and it's made for supercars to be on it. But it'd be fun to be the last race to run on it. So
Sure.
It'd be great. It would be great if you guys want to do that. Please go let it known if you can or can't. Even if you can't, just show some support and go there and on the forum and let Dana know.
I'm probably going to get yelled at for asking. Is there a drop dead date to make a decision? Is when you guys need to know kind of a rough?
Wasn't told that.
Got it. Okay. See, I asked the questions and
I got yelled at for it. I had actually posted up that, hey, yes, I'd go, and I'd have to get the Opal got mentioned, and it took away like 4 or 5 thread parts, and that gets it going. It helps get the talk going.
Sure.
And Dana's like, keep it on point. Well, he didn't say it like that, but yeah, he said keep it on point.
That's good stuff. All right, so the other thing we wanted to talk about was our friends north of the border.
Yep, and there is a border north of us.
There is.
So yeah, but you go over there and they all speak English.
It's West Virginia for you.
Yeah, Canada. Well, this is in Canada. So we have ChampCar Canada, which is run by Perry's Performance and Competition. They've been running our events for the last couple of years now, and they have started up a new Facebook page. It's ChampCar.Canada on Facebook, and that will take you there. And for those folks looking to race with us or want to take a look at us, talk to our folks, it's going to be real easy to find on Facebook, and facebook.com/ChampCar.Canada. Cool. And they also have an Instagram channel they've started up at ChampCar.Canada as well. And get your latest news, and we'd love to have you guys there. We are at a couple of tracks there this year, 3 to be exact. We're at we start out at, I believe, Shannonville, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think it's Shannonville, and then we go to we are at, I didn't write this down in my notes. I should have. It was we're at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park,
right?
And Calabogie. So Calabogie, August, exactly. Calabogie Motorsports Park in August 13th to 14th. That is an awesome track. That's one of those tracks you'll get lost in.
Right.
It takes about maybe 2 stints to really learn the track because every corner looks the same. And when I say every corner, it's got a million corners.
Okay.
Yeah, they run the signs for the corner signs are just really long. That's how many corners it has.
Well, and Canada Tire Motorsports Park again is one of those tracks that will always be Mosport.
That's Mosport. Yeah.
So cool. We'll put the links to all of those Facebook and Instagram pages on the show notes. So don't worry about pulling over and pulling out your voice recognition software. And if you're driving your Tesla, don't stop gaming while you're driving so that you can write it, all that kind of stuff. We'll get it on the show notes so you don't have to pull over while you're driving. While you're driving to VIR, because that's what you should be doing while you're listening to this.
That's right. And then Sonoma, of course, is our West Coast events. We've added a new class for the folks. We're going to, for basically EC cars have been moved to the WC class, and we'll trophy down 3 places in that division because we have a lot of folks that race out there that, they want a little bit more. So that's kind of how we have to do it with our series, and the board approved it, and that's what we're doing.
Cool.
So, and that's out west for the 3 events. Did you ever get any tech tip music?
Oh, I didn't.
Next time. I give you one job. Brian.
I know. I'm sorry. I have failed. We can use the other music just to get us going. Hold on. Tech tip time here on the ChampCar Inside ChampCar podcast. So you got me all for blustered here by putting me on the spot. Now, anyway, tech tip time. This is what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah. This is a little different. I don't actually do this because I'm old and I can't I can't do this.
I held out for years.
I can't do it. I just can't do it.
Okay.
iRacing.
Yes.
iRacing.
Yes.
So we have ChampCar for the last few years had the ChampCar iRacing League.
Sure.
And it's been a huge success.
Of course it has.
I tried it. I think a lot of it had to do with my equipment I had. It was an old one of those PlayStation type steering wheels, and I just couldn't feel anything, and I have to do that. But there's loads of guys that they learn their tracks on. There's something about NASCAR and drivers use this iRacing thing, and Formula One guys and IMSA. So the iRacing thing is, it teaches you the tracks, and it's so real. I guess every pebble and stone and everything is there.
So the experience is regulated somewhat by the equipment that you have. Mm-hmm. So if you're just like me, who you have a Logitech wheels, not sponsored, a Logitech wheel, bolted to your desk with the pedals underneath your desk. I have a very, very sketch setup here for mine, but that's one level. And then you can go all the way up to full shaker rigs, which I have someone who I know and I race with on a regular basis who's got base shakers and LED lights and 18 screens, and so there's varying levels of realism.
David has a buddy that actually builds these 3D, it turns you all, it's pretty wicked thing. So
so, you can spend lots of money.
Oh, yeah.
You can spend as much money on a sim rig as you would spend to go ChampCar racing to build a car.
Oh, yeah.
No question.
Easily.
Question. I have not done that. But, so for me, it's been an incredible learning curve. And I was shocked at how difficult it was. And I think people like you and I, who have got experience from being on the racetrack, give up too fast. Right. We don't like it. We find it difficult. We aren't immediately good at it, and we have very short attention spans. It's not just the kids who've got short attention spans. Us old guys do as well. And
I had better things to do.
Right.
It was
right.
A lot.
So I'm now just past a year into really spending some time doing this, or coming up on a year. And the first 9 months were a huge struggle for me. And then I did the 12 hours of Sebring, the iRacing, the 24 hours of Daytona. And what helped me so much was that, and here's one of the benefits in iRacing that you cannot get on the racetrack. You can have your coach in your ear while you're driving.
Oh, wow.
Telling you every single corner what you did right or what you did wrong. You didn't carry enough speed. You turned in too quick. You braked too early. And you can have that for lap after lap after lap. So when you're doing a 24-hour race, your teammates are with you on your headset the whole time. And I had a teammate who was fantastic, Greg. Love the guy to death. I hear his voice in my nightmares right now going, easy, easy, easy. That was his coaching. But he would help me figure out, where I was doing it wrong. And I cut literally 9 seconds off of my fastest lap at Daytona over the course of my 24 hours. Now, I wasn't racing for all of those 24 hours. We did 1 hour stints, and then we had four drivers, so we rotated every 4 hours, essentially. And but all of that time I had Greg in my ear, most of it, but you can't do that in a race car. There's no way other than having a coach sitting next to you, but you really can't do that other than a track day, and it's not the same. So that is one of the huge benefits from iRacing, which I learned, is that if you have someone who will do it for free, a buddy, that's great. There are also people who are really, really, really good who you can pay to coach you this way.
Right.
And that certainly would be good too. So, it's definitely worth spending some time. If nothing else, if you're going to a track you've never been to, you can learn where the corners are. You can kind of learn what the braking points are, and all of that. That's definitely a positive. But but to get good at it, it takes a lot of hours behind the wheel.
Well, we have a championship that we have, the iRacing, the ChampCar iRacing League.
Right.
And round 3 actually starts up here on March 2nd is our race at Summit Point in a VW Jetta. They do different cars for each track. And then March 9th. I think March 2nd is like the first practice races and stuff, and then the race is the 9th. But
got it.
You can go to our forum at forum.champcar.org, and you can go to the iRacing forum there. and that will actually give you all the rules, what you have to do, the schedule, which we have round 4, March 23rd and 30th at Daytona. They're running a Mustang there, and that's a 2-hour race.
Nice.
Round 5 is April 13th and 20th at Lime Rock Park in a Pontiac Solstice. Unfortunately, we don't actually race at Lime Rock, but they've added it to the schedule for some of the tracks that we race at that they don't have a map for.
Right. Okay, cool.
Round 6 is in April 27th and May 4th at Sonoma with a Miata NC. And round 7 is May 18th to the 25th, and the 25th at Watkins Glen and a Miata NC, and that's a 2-hour race.
Okay.
So you have to have an iRacing subscription and the software installed. There's a championship point format. It's all described on there, how many points you get per race, and there's bonus points and all kinds of stuff. The overall championship winner will receive ChampCar race credits of $1,500 in value.
Nice.
To be redeemed in the 2023 ChampCar Endurance Series season. Second prize will be $1,500 credit will be rewarded to one driver who completes the series participation requirement. To meet this requirement, drivers must complete over 50% of the race distance in 12 or more rounds of the 2022 season. All drivers who have met the requirement at the end of the season will be placed in a pool, and the winner of the prize will be randomly selected by the ChampCar Endurance Series board of directors.
Cool.
There are 4 longer races each quarter of the season: Daytona, Watkins Glen, VIR, and Sebring, and these will be 2-hour in length, mirroring the maximum stint time in a real ChampCar event, and all kinds of other things. And then there's also the huge ass Clean Racer Prize. That's the name of the team. Hugh Jass is their name.
Right.
Not now. Probably YouTube is going to edit me like crazy, but their prize will continue to be awarded to 4 competitors this season, and basically point system for there, and winners will receive T-shirts and I think some other stuff. But
cool.
all the stuff will be on that page.
Nice. So there's no driver changes in this series.
I don't think so.
Okay.
Because it's usually some guy in his basement. I'm kidding.
Well, no. You don't have to be in the same. Oh gosh, I'm going to have to do some teaching to you about how iRacing works. You don't have to be in the same location. We did the 24 Hours of Daytona in 4 different locations, 3 on the East Coast and me on the West Coast. So.
Right.
Oh,
yeah, because my wife would really hate it. Some guy came over to the house and wanting to do a driver change.
Exactly. Absolutely. All right, Bill, I think that's going to do it. We got to get out of here so we can come back and talk to David Kicak.
Yep.
What a great conversation we had with him, and you do not want to miss this, folks. We'll be right back. This is Inside ChampCar on the Racing Wire Podcast Network.
Every race weekend, you don't know what's going to happen. But with ChampCar.live, all the action comes right into your living room. The ChampCar Endurance Series is North America's home to real competitive endurance road racing. And ChampCar.live brings you live, full race coverage with in-car, trackside cameras, interviews, and expert commentary. And ChampCar.live brings you live, full race coverage with in-car and trackside cameras, interviews, and expert commentary. Check out ChampCar.live on the web, subscribe, and ring the bell so as not to miss a single minute of the action. It's fun, free, informative, and it's just a click away. ChampCar.live. Come check us out. We bring you a front row seat, but you'll only need the edge.
Welcome back to Inside ChampCar. He's Bill Strong. I'm Brian Bielanski. Our guest is David Kicak. He's a ChampCar driver with roots in IMSA and a rich history driving Porsches. David, welcome. How are you?
I'm great, Brian. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Oh, I'm looking forward to it. This should be a ton of fun. So I hear you're up in the great white north of Syracuse.
We're in Syracuse, New York.
Why? I'm sorry. Oh gosh, Syracuse. What a great place to be this time of year.
It's a great time of the year.
It's the home of the second-rate basketball team and football team and all that, isn't it, David?
Yes, it is.
Wow.
Syracuse University Sports. And not far from the Adirondacks of Lake Placid, New York.
There you go. And not far from the Finger Lakes, where I'm sure you've had some good times.
Our house is situated approximately 8 minutes from the first Finger Lake.
Got it.
And we are about an hour and 10 minutes to Watkins Glen.
Cool. My wife is an Ithaca College grad.
Oh, that's down the road from us also.
So funny.
Right across the street from Cornell.
Yeah, it is. Very funny story. So she took me to Ithaca for the first time, and she talked to me about these waterfalls, how amazing these waterfalls were. And all she could talk about was these waterfalls. And we went to Ithaca for like college, for like homecoming or something. And she took me to the waterfalls. And apparently they'd been in a drought for like a year and a half.
Right.
And it was just a trickle. I mean, it was hilarious. So
was that just a few short years ago?
Oh, no, this was back, I would say 1998 or so, something like that.
Okay.
It's been...
They do have their dry spells.
Yeah, it was pretty funny. Pretty funny.
So the question we have is, where hasn't Brian been?
There are a few places. My trip around the country has been vast.
Yes.
So
I like that. Yep.
I love it. So let's start from the beginning. And you have done a lot of really, really cool stuff before you got to ChampCar. So, and I know it was IMSA for some time with Brumos, but there had to be.
Let's start way back.
Well, that's what I say. That's
way back.
That's the
before IMSA.
One of the highlights.
I think it was around the time of those.
Oh gosh,
rock wheels and stuff.
The stone tires.
Wow.
Yes, Firestone.
Actually, Bill, it was before that. I actually started in SCCA, like most people did at the time, because that was the only venue,
right,
an outlet that there was. So I did the SCCA Nationals, started off in regionals, and then immediately moved to the Nationals.
What kind of car?
Just because the competition was a bit better, and I just wanted to advance.
But what kind of car were you racing back then?
I started with a Corvette. That was my first car, and I went to driver's school in it.
All right, so that must have been what, B production at the time?
At the time, it was B production, but they also had A production.
Right.
We had a 350 Chevrolet motor in, and I also had a 427 motor. It was a ZL1.
Ooh.
The all aluminum block.
Right.
And but we ran in the B production class. And then from there, I graduated to running the Trans Am series.
Got it.
Because first of all, it was so close to Watkins Glen, and in conjunction with that, at that particular time, what was known as the World Championship for Makes race. There were a series of endurance races throughout the world. The closest one, obviously, here for me was Watkins Glen.
Sure.
So
we did that, and of course that was kind of fun and cool with all the Formula One drivers at the time would cross over, and that was kind of their spending money, I'll say.
About what era is
Formula
this?
One salaries?
About what year is this? Are you doing this?
Well, actually, I started in 1973 in SCCA, and then my first professional race was 2 years later.
So
Actually, it was a 6-hour race, and the 6-hour race at Watkins Glen was on traditionally July 4th weekend, and they had the Can-Am series also running.
Oh,
so they had 5 major races, and also the Super V Cup, the open wheel cars.
Right.
So that was kind of a pretty neat thing, and that was my taste of road racing with some true professionals. Your Jackie Stewarts. All the Formula One drivers at the time, your Peter Revsons.
Right.
And, so that's how it started for me.
Did you pay? I mean, did you take your own car to this first professional race, or did you drive for somebody else? I took my own car. Ran
my own car for years.
Got it.
And then that took me to a friend had called and said that someone needed a driver that he was driving for. And that's when the Porsches came into play. And this fella had a Porsche, twin turbo. And so that's how the Porsche factor started for me.
Was that like a 935?
Pardon me?
Was that like a 935?
That's exactly what it was.
Oh, wow.
935 twin turbos.
Wow.
And then we continued racing together. And then from there, it kind of maybe snowballed, you could say. Other teams would call. At that particular time, you needed co-drivers, and a little bit different than it is today with a lot of the factories that were involved, and they have their own drivers typically today. Whether it's the Lamborghini teams, the Ferrari, the Porsche teams, they've all got their own drivers. Of course, the Corvette teams.
Sure.
Back then, you could be a privateer and do well, and compete literally on a level playing field, even though you were competing against the factories. But the rules were much different. You could do obviously different things with really no regulations. And my car at that time, getting back to the Corvette, was a crossover between IMSA and the Trans Am series.
Do you think the limiting factor at that time was tire technology, that maybe the tires weren't as critical as they were today?
No, actually, we did a lot of tire testing for Goodyear. No, and obviously it was true race rubber. And, I haven't driven on what's given, in the IMSA series today, so I really couldn't tell. Right. But I'd probably say the tire war was really raging back when I was doing the IMSA series.
So in that era, is that the Jim Fitzgerald, the start of Paul Newman era? Is that kind of who you were racing with in the Trans Am series?
It's exactly who I was racing with. I met Paul Newman through the SCCA Nationals, and it's funny because down at Watkins Glen, which is nothing what it looks like now, they had a series of buildings on the last turn of the track. Up that road, Wedgwood Road, and we'd have parties there the weekend, just us. And Paul Newman would come over, so we all got to know him well. And it was all a first name basis. And, of course, there was a lot of, a little bit of alcohol involved. A lot of pasta, a lot of popcorn, lots of everything. And the teams that I would be with would bring their own chef. So that's all he enjoyed doing was talking. And didn't like racing so much, but just liked to talk. And was a fellow that lost his wife many years previous to that. And he was a great chef and would make breakfast, lunch, and dinner for us. So Paul and all the Datsun fellows would come over. And, we'd just sit there and just have a ball.
Back when Nissan was Datsun, that's how old I am. I remember those days.
Yeah,
right. Datsun.
And, my experiences with Paul Newman at Lime Rock were if you talked to him about racing, he'd talk with you for hours, and the minute you started to ask him about anything to do with Hollywood, it would be the end of the conversation very quickly.
That was it. Correct. Yeah. Honestly, he was just a really nice individual, down to earth guy.
Right.
And it's funny because he never gave autographs out.
Right.
Only to children. Only to children. And one particular time down at Daytona, we were entertaining an organization that brought some kids over that they were abused children, and Paul came over, and spent some time with them. And that particular year down at Daytona, the 24-hour race, we had some Italians on the team, which we became great friends, even to this day. And they brought their own chef, so the pasta just flowed. And that was also the time with Gianpiero Moretti, Mr. Momo, and he was also well known for his pasta making at all the races. Mr. Newman was a great guy.
Did you cross paths with Mark Donahue?
No.
Okay. Yeah,
no,
Mark.
Not at all. But his son.
Oh, absolutely.
His son David.
David and I did lots of radio together, and it was so cool when I heard that he was getting involved with the Ford versus Ferrari movie and all that kind of stuff. Just a really, really nice young man.
I haven't seen him in a while. Yes, he's a great kid.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So from there, you end up in the Porsches, and that's kind of where I'm going to guess you kind of feel like you made your mark there going forward. What was that transition from, big 350, Corvettes into the fast, twisty little Porsches that sounded very different, drove very different. You went from mid-engine or from rear front engine, rear drive to a mid-engine car.
No, rear engine.
Oh, that's
those
true.
Those are rear engine.
Right. So what was that transition like?
The Widowmakers.
It was effortless. It was kind of a relief not to open the hood at every pit stop like we did with the American cars. Looking down pit road, none of the Porsches had their hoods open.
Right.
All the American cars, every pit stop, the engine bonnet would be open. But the transition was, I didn't have any problem at all. I was fortunate enough to be in some factory Porsches also. So they were pretty well set up. And the first 6-speed Porsche that I actually drove was for a team from Switzerland. The name was Habither Racing. And the year that I drove with them, I started at Watkins Glen. They had won the Le Mans 24-hour in their class.
Wow.
And I met them through my Italian friends that I drove with at Daytona. That's how it all began.
Now, they picked you because you were pretty gentle to the car. I mean, you could drive, but you didn't bring the car back with just a nut in your hand.
Bill, it's funny because a lot of guys today in racing, everybody talks about, geez, we've got so-and-so, and boy, is he fast. Well, fast doesn't necessarily always win the race.
Right.
Because you want to bring the car home, for your next driver that's getting in one piece, and be easy on the brakes and just be gentle with the car. But at the same time, turn competitive lap times, which I did and which I could do, and whatever they told me to do, that was my job, and that's what I did for them. The Swiss fellas were very nice. It was a 6-speed gearbox. Down at Watkins Glen, they told me what gears to use, and I thought I could slip one in a gear lower going into the first turn, the 90 at the Glen, and Christian, who was one of the owners, it was him and his brother, Christian and Olivier, and he quickly got on the radio and told me, he said, I heard the gear. That was a time with no telemetry, but
right.
We were midway through Watkins Glen, and that's also when they had the old pits, and they had sidewalks going along the pit rail, as you know well, Bill, because you were there for the Firestone Firehawk series. Yep. But the cars were really cool, and actually they were the simplest thing to drive. The twin turbos were just so easy. Did you get had to be gentle at first with the accelerator, and because you could spin the wheels up, with no problem, even in 5th gear, going down the back straightaway at the Glen, and you two know it, I can tell. Right. The wheels would just spin on those cars.
Well, you didn't back then. You didn't have the chicane either, so it was balls out.
You didn't have the chicane at that particular time, no.
Right.
Well, which chicane are you talking about? On the back straight or
the back straight?
The S's?
Not the S's, but the back straight. Yeah, that was put in the 90s, I think, wasn't it?
But I got to tell you, Bill, I don't really. I mean, I like the chicane that's back there now. Yeah. Everyone calls it the bus stop or the
bus stop. That's it. Yes.
It's actually the chicane. I mean, it's not really, referred to. If you went to the racing library down there, and told them where you're looking for, but they would correct you and tell you that it's still the chicane.
Yeah, us broadcasters mess that stuff up. We like to come up with kitschy names like the bus stop and all of that. So that's our fault.
It seems like over the years, everybody has renamed some corners that, I don't think, in my opinion, should be. The tracks have been sanitized enough throughout the years. I think some corners should be left the way they were originally designed.
So that's funny you say that, because when ChampCar first announced that they were going there back in 2011, I was so excited. I was like, oh my God, I get to race on this track finally, because I'd worked there, but not actually race there. And a bunch of people were like, oh, everybody's going to die. Everybody's going to die there. It's going to be bad. And, of course, we all get out there for like the first, I'm in the first stint, and we all go out, and it's like, oh my God, this is really scary. But, we're all tiptoeing around the track. I mean, everybody in ChampCar is tiptoeing around the track, except for the locals that, drove that track all the time. And it was not that bad. And it took me, I want to say 2 years, maybe, that's what, 6 or 8 stints of finally getting it to where I could just flat foot it through the S's and almost flat foot it through the bus stop with our aero car, and almost die through the tow and, those type of things. But it's probably one of the best tracks I've ever raced on. Well, one of my top 5 favorite tracks. But like you said, it's been sanitized. Most tracks have been sanitized. This one has not.
Yeah, it hasn't, except for that when they added the chicane to slow everything down for NASCAR. I mean, that was the whole purpose, I believe, of that bus stop. You
but
know,
it adds a technical aspect to that track where it's not like Road America where you're just going really fast, hit the brakes,
right.
turn, go really fast, hit the brakes, turn.
I think it's now been around long enough that it's been so accepted as part of what was Watkins Glen or it is Watkins Glen.
Yeah.
That people forget almost that there was a time when there wasn't one there. So, but and you know, getting that right, like you said, is I remember the first time I did the kink at Road America flat out. It was the happiest day of my life, honestly.
Oh yeah.
You don't think you can do it, and then everyone else is doing it, so you know it can be done. But it takes...
we don't do the kink. We do the motorcycle version of it.
Okay.
What do they call that, David, at Road America? You know where the kink is? We don't run the kink. We run the bypass.
Got it.
The
Okay.
club course, do they call it?
I'm sorry.
They call that the club course?
Nah, it's the motorcycle course or something. They don't run the motorcycles don't run the kink.
Got it. Okay. So, go ahead.
When I mentioned Bill's, the track's been sanitized, I was also referring to the track itself as far as the runoff areas.
Right.
We had to actually drive on the track. And if you went off the track, you were in a little bit of trouble. But now you've got a paved first turn that is virtually a parking lot. And it was never like that. And then,
people use that as part of the track.
They use that as part of the track, right? And I might be off, but I think some people, if they had to really use the track and never go off, they wouldn't drive it very well.
Yeah.
Right.
So because it takes a little bit more skill to use the track,
right,
instead of using runoff area that's there. And then, you're slamming the curbs all the time, which I'm, deathly against because of the damage that it could potentially cause and the damage that eventually it will cause, on suspension pieces.
Yeah, that was something that we were always afraid of, is because, with the MR2, we had such weak hubs and, the wheel components. And so taking that way out there would just shake the absolute heck out of that car. So it was like, stay away, just learn how to take it properly and stay off the curbs.
Well, I mean,
if you fellows looked at the map of an old map of Watkins Glen, you'll see at the end of the straightaway that there was actually a little chicane there in the old days.
Really?
I've never used it, but there was a chicane there.
Okay.
Right as you make the turn. So there was something always there. They just never used it.
Sure.
As the years went on. Why, I don't know, but
it could have been one of those things that they designed in and then they ran it and all the racers were like, no, take this away. This is too dangerous.
That could possibly be. Yeah.
So, back in the day, I guess it started with gravel traps. I think that was the first safety measure that was put in a lot of racetracks. And then it decided that there was too much chance of a car rolling over in a gravel trap, so they now paved everything. And I'm sure that there's insurance companies involved with those decisions and all of that. But what's the biggest takeaway that you have now with the newer tracks and the situation that we have with people who have less experience before they get into higher powered cars sometimes? Is it just like, you're trying to find this balance between what's safe for so many different levels of skill on the racetrack at the same time?
Honestly, Brian, I think sometimes these tracks, we'll take a Watkins Glen, seeing that we're talking about it, that sometimes people might be overconfident. Right. Because they see so much room. So they don't know how to drive the track because they never really learned how to drive the track on the proper racing line or the proper wet line.
Right.
But, for example, you talked about the gravel traps. They went to that. And then up through the S's of Watkins Glen, they actually had fence posts there with chain link fencing. And that was put in as a result of Jody Scheckter.
Right.
And, he thought that would be a good idea for the Formula One cars. And they also had a different chicane there. And it actually turned into a launch pad where the cars would just hit it and fly over. So that was rather dangerous. And they took that out. And then down at the entrance of turn 9, going into 10 at Watkins Glen, they also had chain link fence, with fence posts just stuck right right on the side of the track. I mean, there was no runoff room at all. It was simply there to catch cars. They thought that would help, but actually it killed a few people. Now, and one fellow that I knew in particular that raced it was an SCCA national race, and he went through it, and it went through his car and went through his helmet.
So
I think
those kind of improvements are good.
Those kind of improvements are good. I think all the improvements are good. It just takes away, what the tracks used to look like. I mean, your Road America, to me is just an absolutely gorgeous track. To have them cut down, and we all know that track, obviously.
Right.
To have them cut down all the trees where they have their little forest there in their picnic area, I think would be a travesty. And actually, I don't think they would ever do it. Watkins Glen was different because of the people that have owned it for the past few years. And like Brian, you said, I'm sure they are dictated by insurance.
So now let's fast forward to the world that you're in today. You've had all these amazing experiences on the professional ranks with IMSA and going back to Trans Am. Now you race with ChampCar Endurance Series. And I'm hearing, as a person who's not been involved with ChampCar like Bill has, I'm hearing all of these folks who have had all these amazing professional racing experiences who have migrated to or are spending time playing in with the ChampCar Endurance Series. What's the attraction in that series for you?
The competition, still being able to race at this point of my life. It started for me in 2013 when I got a call, and a couple fellows that my name was passed along to them down in the New Jersey area were looking for a co-driver. They had a Mazda Miata that was their first race, first wheel-to-wheel. It was first everything for them. And so I joined them at Watkins Glen, a little apprehensive when I knew that no one was required to have a license of any sort. But I was pleasantly surprised. And the weather was atrocious. It was in April, and it was maybe 40 degrees, a little rain, a little wind. No, lots of wind, some snow, and which made it even feel colder, obviously, with the wind chill. But after that, I was kind of hooked on it. And I did a couple more with these fellas. Went down to VIR that same year. And on the flip side, it was like 103 degrees down there. And that was even at like 3 a.m.
Right.
And we competed in the 24-hour race and finished the race and did well. And then the people that are involved are you just couldn't meet a nicer group of people, as far as the staff goes. And then the competitors themselves.
What? You mean the other staff?
Okay, Bill, I take that.
Yeah. Well, the staff that other than Bill.
Yeah.
So.
Well, at the time, Bill wasn't on the staff.
Right.
Yeah, I was a racer back then.
He was chasing, I think, wheels that fell off his yellow.
It only happened twice or 3 times over a long period.
But this is a great venue for people such as myself that have done what you've had and just don't want to quit yet. And I can find that I still can do it, and you still have the desire to do it, the will to do it, and being around the people is what makes it even more fun right now for me.
Now you convinced your wife to go out, and you liked it so much you convinced your wife to go buy you a car. She got you one for Christmas or something.
Well, that's kind of the story, Bill, but there's a little I think there was a little bit more to it than that.
Yeah. Well, I just like simple. I like it simple. Come on, man.
Yeah. Well, yeah. We had a little tragedy in our family.
All right.
So I think maybe, that was maybe on her mind. And it just happens that this is the car that I drove at Indianapolis with a longtime competitor and friend in Buzz McCall.
Mm.
They're like really famous right now with their TV show.
Yes, they are.
Yep.
Yeah, they're doing well. And so it was just a thing where the car was available and everything just seemed right about it. So I guess Sue thought maybe it would be a good thing for us to get it.
Very
keep
cool.
busy, bring another car into ChampCar. And yeah, I mean, that was a very, very kind thing and generous for her to do.
Right.
So I'm back into car ownership with Porsches.
And your wife, just to let folks know, your wife is Sue. She usually works pit out or pit in, one of the two.
One of the others, and she's also a registrar.
Right.
Got it.
And you also have started working with ChampCar every now and then when you're not racing.
Correct.
Yep.
With a job undetermined at this point.
Undetermined. Yep. Bill's gopher. We haven't talked about that one yet.
Oh gosh, really?
Oh God.
I'm gonna put you under Paulie.
I'm Bill's boy.
Yeah, I'm gonna put you under Paulie. Put you way down there. I'm kidding.
That's okay. I'm Bill's chief whipping boy, so I'm even a notch below that on the list.
Well,
so
David and I met in around 87, 88. We didn't know it. David posted a picture up on Facebook a couple of years ago, and of him at the Burger King 24 hours at Watkins Glen, and him and another driver, I think it was, and in the background, up in the stand, back when Watkins Glen had those garages with the seats on top.
It was called the pit roof seating, Bill.
Yeah, up the seating there, and I'm standing there with a camera taking pictures of teams with my ex-wife standing next to me with my daughter. And it was just like, what the heck?
That's so
a long
cool.
time ago. Yeah. I was a
The
little skinny.
Firestone Firehawk series.
Yep.
Yeah.
That was a good little series. You ran a Corvette or a Camaro there, didn't you?
No, I drove an MR2.
Oh, that's right. Yes.
I drove an MR2 for a team that won the championship for their class the year before.
Okay.
Right.
And those were really neat little cars.
Yes, they are.
And you can really parallel that series with ChampCar right now.
You're not the only one that I've heard say that. I've talked to other drivers with our other show, ChampCar Live, that have said basically the same thing, that even though they were kind of showroom stock, they were fixed up, but they weren't really showroom stock, but that the series was as competitive as ChampCar.
The series was very competitive.
Yep.
Yeah, and I drove a Porsche, a 944 in that also once, and they didn't have the horsepower as the Camaros and the Firebirds, and but they won some races because of their fuel, but not always. It wasn't all about the fuel,
right? Because
the Camaros would, they would roar back after a pit stop and rapidly catch you. So it wasn't all about the fuel, but IMSA kept they balanced things extremely well in that series, and of course everybody was on the same hard rock, the Flintstone tires.
Yeah, the Firestone Firehawk.
I think that was a great equalizer also.
Yeah.
So you mentioned something a little earlier that I just want to circle back on, and you mentioned how when you first got involved with ChampCar, it was a series that you didn't need a license to get in, and that kind of gave you a start or whatever. How have you found that? Because, excuse me, even the SCCA now has, the ChampCar has proven that you can take drivers with not a lot of experience and get them on the track and do it safely. And the SCCA has started to lessen some of their school programs to make it a little easier to get a license. How have your experience been on the track with varying experience levels throughout these endurance race weekends?
Listen, Brian, I've done a lot of races so far in my life. I've learned that, you watch people, you can tell by their attitude, maybe in the paddock. You can tell when they get on the track of, if they're nervous, if they're a little apprehensive. And I personally have followed some people around that I was a little leery about because I knew that they were a first timer.
Right.
And it turns out that they did really well. And I guess, if everyone just minded their own P's and Q's and didn't drive over their head, above their ability, and get that what we all call the red mist. I didn't see any problems.
That's great.
Now, listen, every now and then you're going to have that in a series.
Sure.
I mean, I don't know if you watched the St. Petersburg Grand Prix yesterday. A seasoned veteran like Jimmy Johnson thought that he could maybe race the third place car that was coming up on him. Well, the rules are the rules, and he didn't really have to move over.
Right.
Then fast forward to to ChampCar, there's some people there that, in my opinion, they deserve to be there.
Right.
If they're a detriment to their race team, to the other people on the track, as far as being dangerous or making very poor choices, that's a whole other matter that, the race director should address. But honestly, I haven't really seen any of that. I've heard of some instances, and I've heard some people complain about, this team or that particular driver in this particular car. But I can honestly say that I have never had an incident since 2013 that I've been with ChampCar ever, just period, ever.
So we raced together. How did that not happen?
I've had more in IMSA and in Trans Am.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So I don't know who these people that are having problems with other cars are. My first inclination is, geez, maybe you who think that you're such a good driver yourself, maybe you put yourself in a position where you shouldn't have been.
Right.
So, maybe that's a nice thing about being a little aged in life, that you weigh things and say, listen, this would be a poor choice on my part. I know I can take this car, but I'll just wait till I can make a very safe pass, because I need to turn this car over to somebody else.
Right. I like how we've
tiptoed. Drive and think now.
I like how we've tiptoed around this topic for the last 35 minutes. As someone with a lot of laps under your belt, do drivers come up to you on race weekends and seek out mentorship and kind of try to tap into your experience at all?
David's a little scary, though.
Honestly, I'm quite honestly, Brian, I'm pretty low key.
Okay.
The fellas that do know me, there's been a few that have come up.
Yeah.
And they've been younger guys, and I guess they have taken the time to research or maybe to Google the name, because we're different generations.
Right.
So if I threw some names out to them, they wouldn't know who these world famous drivers are. I mean, unfortunately, that's just the reality that I have come to realize. I'll give you an idea. I was at a race last year. I was supposed to pick up this Porsche Boxster, but I wound up driving it. That's kind of a funny story, but and one of the teammates was Lonnie Unser.
Yeah.
Well, I drove against her with her dad, Johnny.
Right.
And I drove, with Al Unser and Bobby Unser, and we were chit-chatting, and she was asking me about, my life in general, children. And I said, geez, I have a son, and started talking. And I said, well, he was in New York, and he was, down there acting and on soap operas. And Lonnie didn't know what soap operas were. So this is, to get back to your question,
right.
There's some fellas out there and girls that don't know who Johnny Unser is.
Right.
Who don't know who Johnny Rutherford is.
Right.
They don't know who Nicky Lauda is.
Or Lorenzo Lamas.
Andretti, because he's so famous. But that's what you run into. And then if they approach me and ask questions, I tell them, and typically it's all the same thing. They want to know, how to drive this particular track or what you do. And I would tell everybody, new or old or seasoned, all the same thing is just be aware of your surroundings.
Right.
Now you've raced.
And listen, this is a series where we can all have fun, and we can all do it at whatever age you choose to do it, until you're physically or mentally incapable of doing it. But don't ruin it for everybody, because this is an opportunity that you will never have any other place, to drive some of the tracks that ChampCar has visited, and to and meet the people that you're going to meet, and honestly, they're just lifelong memories.
Yeah, fantastic.
Now you've raced with other, not just famous racers, but also actors like Lorenzo Lamas and the Jenner dude.
Lorenzo was a good guy. Yep. Actually, Bill, I was going to contact Lorenzo to see if he'd be interested in driving. Coming.
Oh, that would be awesome.
He's a good guy, and it's
you
funny.
Probably crossed with Tom Cruise too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because he was. I think Paul Newman took him under his wing, because Paul lost a son.
Right.
He had a son that died, as a young kid, and I understand now. I didn't then, but I understand now, sometimes the look in his eyes, the faraway look, and some of the things that he might have said. But he took, Tom Cruise under, but it didn't work out. I don't think Tom Cruise was that interested.
I think his wife actually, he got into that really bad wreck, and I think his wife actually talked him out of that at that moment. Said, "No, you need to look at something else."
Yeah, and I think probably the movie contracts had something to do with that as well. He was in my first driver school back in, I don't remember what year that was, a long time ago, up at Road America. And
it was an SCCA school.
It was an SCCA school. Yeah, right when he was starting out, and he was just everyone just like, well, leave him alone, don't talk to him. And I'm like, okay, whatever. He didn't seem, he was nice enough as far as I could tell, but it was just very funny. So, so Bill, as we get to the point where we need to start wrapping this thing up, because we could probably talk for hours.
Oh yeah, we could.
Is there anything else you wanted to touch on here before we get going?
Yeah. So you drive a Porsche now, a Boxster. Porsche Boxster. And how does that compare to the dynamics of it? Not necessarily the speed, but the dynamics of it compared to the 935 KRs back in the drug-infused
oh God, Bill, 80s. There's no comparison.
None.
The twin turbos.
No, not the dynamics of the car. How it handled. Are the newer cars easier and better to drive than those monsters from back then?
Well, listen, those cars, they were not only incredibly fast, they were just a beast to drive. As far as the 935s, they had they had an aluminum tube frame.
Right.
And the floorboards were fiberglass that obviously were removable, and your butt was maybe 3.5 inches off the ground.
So you felt 100% safe.
When I look back, they were kind of scary.
Right.
As you're doing it, you don't think that because you were in something that, not many people will ever have the opportunity at that time to be in.
Right.
And the cars they're just a beast now, but they're the most beautiful design car that you want to lay your eyes on, with the long tails and the Kremer cars.
Right.
They were just an absolute piece of machinery. As far as the modern cars now, listen, the Porsche Boxsters are easy to drive. Being the mid-engine car, they're reasonably easy on fuel. They're a very well-balanced car. And of course, the Porsche brakes.
Right.
You can't say anything bad about Porsche brakes.
Right, no kidding.
These are stock brakes on these cars. And it down at the 24-hour, we in VIR this past August, we went the entire race on a set of brake pads, and I could even use them probably for another 10-hour race.
Wow.
As we are now, and we also, went the race on the Cooper tires.
Right.
So but along with that comes a car that you have to well balance, and it's got to be driven properly also. And that part, that's the part that when we initially started this conversation where, you have to make sure things are set up and you have to take care of the car. Because, if you're there at the end, then you've got always an opportunity to do well. But if you're looking to, break the fastest time of the weekend, chances are you're not going to make it at the end.
Now, did you ever get a chance to drive the GTP cars or anything higher than the production cars?
Actually, I drove a Formula 5000 car once.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
And it was not in competition, but it was in a practice session, and it was a car that Brian Redman, who some of the young guys won't know either.
Oh, yeah.
He won the championship with it the year before.
Oh, wow.
It was the Baraxo Lola car. And Lola was a car from Carl Haas.
Right.
Are those one of those cars that you have to drive fast just to go? You have to drive it fast or it just won't drive?
It's funny. You have to drive fast or it won't go around turns well.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a scary thing because, you don't want to go around the turn, slow with them. And it had the kind of a sloppy gearbox. And, and they had the Chevrolet motors in them that were, really highly developed. And
was that because of the ground effects that if you were going too slow, you weren't going to stick?
Not really, Brian. These particular cars, the Formula 5000 series didn't have ground effects.
Okay.
They were just a formula car. The Can-Am cars had the ground effects.
Right.
And a couple of years later, when the series was kind of waning, they would take some of these Formula 5000 cars and rebody them. We call them the envelope bodies.
Right.
Put a different body on them, and then all of a sudden you had a Can-Am car.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure.
But I did drive once. You guys all know the Mark Donahue, Roger Penske Sunoco Blue 917.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Well, a fella that I knew owned one.
Yeah.
And he had a 91710, and I had driven that once.
Oh.
And the thing was just absolutely incredible.
Geez, these are the things like we read about in the magazines, and that was it. I had to go up to Riverside just to see some of this stuff. And
Riverside, that had to be a great track at the time for these cars.
Yeah.
With the little snake S's there going through. Yep. I mean, they were just so incredibly fast.
Right.
I only saw little bits of it because that's all we could go, because fans and Dad wouldn't let me go very far.
That's right, Bill. You were in California, weren't you?
Yep.
For all that.
Yep.
Yeah. Those were good years.
Yeah. Cool.
So cool. And we're going to have you on again to the stories that we could just sit and talk about forever. I mean, that would be so much fun. So, David, really can't thank you enough for taking the time with us today. It's just been a ton of fun.
You too, Brian. Appreciate it.
All right,
we'll do it again. We'll catch up.
Absolutely. It's David Kicak. He has, as we talked about, tons of roots in IMSA, and now he's with ChampCar Series. And again, we can't thank you enough for being with us. When we come back, we'll have a look at what's coming up next week on Inside ChampCar. This is the Racing Wire Podcast Network.
Inside ChampCar is a podcast that takes a deep dive into all things going on with the ChampCar Endurance Series. Hosted by veteran journalist, radio host, and racer Brian Bielanski and ChampCar's very own Bill Strong, we talk to drivers, team bosses, tech gurus, and series supporters. Episodes air every week in time for you to listen on your way to the track. Inside ChampCar is on the Racing Wire Podcast Network, found on Apple, Spotify, Google, and most popular podcasting apps.
Welcome back to the Inside ChampCar podcast. He's
Bill Strong.
I'm Brian Bielanski. Getting ready to wrap this one up. A great show, Bill. David, what a great guy. What a great guy.
Awesome. That was
so
awesome.
Cool. So cool. All right, next week we're gonna review all of the fun and frivolity, all of the action, this excitement, there'll be no controversies.
Yep. I'm gonna display all the photos. I got some new camera gear and stuff. I'll display all the photos on this show.
Nice. It's a podcast, Bill.
Oh, I can't do my slideshow.
No,
I got this little slide thing.
But we can put a link to a slideshow in the show notes.
Oh, we could.
Yeah,
we could.
There we go. We'll do that. We'll talk about that. Hopefully, we'll have the winner or one of the winners from VIR as our guest next week. That should be a ton of fun. And then we're going to preview Harris Hill Raceway. That's a track
that one we are doing live.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah, ChampCar.live. We'll have that one up on our show. We will be doing a live feed from that one with in-car cameras and trackside commentary.
Nice. We'll do all of that next week. Anything else before we head the heck out of here?
No, the Harris Hill race is going to be cool. That's a packed field. I think we have 40 cars. Little tiny paddock in that. It's a square paddock. It's not really a typical race paddock. It's a club course. So
nice.
Yeah, it's a fun track, really fast. You guys will love it.
Cool. All right, that's going to do it for another episode of Inside ChampCar. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast so you won't miss any episodes. You could also share all those episodes on your social media channels. That would be fantastic. We're also now on YouTube. You can listen and watch. There's not much to watch, but you can certainly listen via YouTube. You can go to the ChampCar Live YouTube page for that. Also, you can leave us a comment on the ChampCar Facebook page, especially if it's a good one. New episodes every week. He's Bill Strong. I'm Brian Bielanski, and you're listening to the Racing Wire Podcast Network.